We're days away from the 2024 Iowa Republican Presidential Caucus, and we have to discuss why a second place finish in Iowa is make or break for the other campaigns. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video, and today it is time that we talk about the 2024 Republican presidential primary. Now, as most of you know, the Iowa caucuses are in a couple of days, and let's face it, Trump is gonna be the winner. He's going to win the nomination, or at least Iowa caucus, by a record amount for a non-incumbent. He just is. With that being said, there still is a fascinating battle for second place, and I know, why the hell are you talking about second place when Trump's gonna win by 30 points or whatever? Because whoever takes second place, in my opinion, is gonna be seen as the true alternative to Trump. Going into New Hampshire, going into South Carolina, Nevada, and eventually Super Tuesday. So Trump's gonna win the caucus and more than likely the nomination, but we're gonna see who's gonna be seen as the quote-unquote alternative to Donald Trump. Now, before we continue with today's video, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Guys, just for $1 a month, you can join Real American. This is the best way to support the daily content that we all know and love. So I hope and recommend you join the channel today. Alright, everybody. Now, let me be clear, like I said, Trump is going to win the Iowa caucus, and more than likely the nomination. But it still is a fascinating battle for second place. Whether it's Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, or Vivek Ramaswamy, it still is a fascinating thing to look at. Now, this article is a couple days old. It's going to mention the debate that happened Wednesday. It's going to mention that some polls didn't release yet. They did now. So this is like 2 to 3 days old, but the contents of it is actually, I think, important. So let's get into it. Former President Donald Trump is undeniably the frontrunner in Iowa's Republican caucuses. While we have not had a single poll conducted and released publicly in January, the ones from December put Trump in the strongest position of any Republican at that point before the caucuses. So, yeah, it is a bit outdated. Trump is up by a bit more according to brand new polling that released, I think, yesterday. And this came out the 10th. The polls came out later that day in hell, the 11th and 12th. Nikki Haley's in second place, according to those brand new polls. So, this might leave you asking why we should care about either Florida Governor Ron DeSantis or former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, given they were both more than 30 points behind Trump in those same polls. The pair will face off in a CNN debate on Wednesday night, their final chance for a breakout performance ahead of next week's contest. So, again, the debate happened. Everybody said Nikki Haley was a disaster. DeSantis, quote-unquote, won the debate. The reason? The Iowa results do a fairly lousy job of predicting what happens in the New Hampshire primary, but Iowa could help winnow the field as well as provide a momentum-driven boost heading into New Hampshire. And that's where it becomes important. Historically, Iowa has not been the state to predict the nomination. And this article will mention it later, but it just hasn't. It usually is actually New Hampshire, but that's why the whole Iowa or bust campaign for DeSantis was the dumbest thing he ever did. Because he needed to win the Iowa caucus, not take second. He needed either defeat by like 5 points or flat out win it. That was his entire campaign, and now he's not. It's a dumb strategy that does not correlate necessarily to the nomination. Let's start with what is obvious at this point. DeSantis is not doing well in New Hampshire. The latest CNN poll conducted by the University of New Hampshire has DeSantis down to 5th place with a mere 5% of the voter support. It's tough to imagine DeSantis having any real shot at the nomination, if he came in third in Iowa and came in third or worse in New Hampshire. DeSantis' campaign has to know that. I don't think they do. I really think they thought, if we win the Iowa caucus, we will win the nomination. History's littered with Southern conservatives who bet all on Iowa and dropped out afterward. The one that comes most immediately to my mind is Phil Gramm. He, like DeSantis, was a fundraising machine and was seen as Bob Dole's strongest rival for the 1996 nomination. Gramm, though, finished poorly in Iowa and left the race. If DeSantis finishes second in Iowa, he may stay in the race for a significant amount of time. The Florida governor could claim to be Trump's strongest rival, and that's where it does get a bit messy. Because the Nikki Haley argument is, well, DeSantis can't even take second in Iowa. And she's not directly saying that, but most people are thinking there's no way DeSantis at this point even takes second in Iowa. He struggles to. DeSantis absolutely needs to get second place. If he doesn't, he's going to drop out. Because his campaign knows, if we can't take second in Iowa, we're probably going to take fifth in New Hampshire or fourth now. And that's always been the problem with Iowa or bust. Iowa or bust. It doesn't work. And now I think they're realizing this was a bad mistake. Haley, on the other hand, isn't looking to merely keep her campaign afloat after Iowa. She's looking to use it as a launching pad to the Granite State. She's down just 7 points to Trump in our latest New Hampshire poll, which this poll's an outlier. Trump is up by closer to 20, according to other polls that are more reliable than CNN polling. But hey, that's just based on what RSP is saying. When you average it out, even with this poll, it's like Trump plus 14. The former South Carolina governor has risen from 20% in November to 32% now, while Trump is now at 39%. While Haley has a minimal chance of winning in Iowa, that doesn't matter as much as you might think. Think about the two largest wins for non-incumbents in the history of Iowa's Republican caucuses. Bob Dole in 1988 and George W. Bush in 2000. Neither of those people won New Hampshire. In fact, no Republican has ever won Iowa and New Hampshire. And this is what's historically fascinating about Trump. He's not just up by a lot in Iowa. He's still up by 15 to 20 in New Hampshire. That never happens in quote-unquote contested primaries like this. Yes, it happens when it's a non-incumbent, or it is an incumbent, but it never happens in situations like this. Usually, you either do good in New Hampshire, or you do good in Iowa, not both. Part of the reason both Dole and Bush lost in New Hampshire was their wins in Iowa weren't surprising. Both held large leads a week out from the caucuses, and both slightly undershot their average poll. This mattered because both also trailed in New Hampshire at this point. What history tells us is that the best way to quantify momentum coming out of Iowa is how much better candidates do than expected, i.e., how much better they do than their polling. And this is why I'm saying Vivek Ramaswamy has the best shot of gaining momentum. And I know that seems crazy, but think about it. Nikki Haley needs to get at least, let's just say, 20% of the vote. Ron DeSantis, he needs like 25% to be seen as an overperformer. Just an example. If Ramaswamy cracks double digits, he's going to be seen as the big overperformer. Hell, Trump, if he cracks 60, it's over. But yeah, I'm trying to tell people, this is a great point that whoever overperforms the most according to polling, they usually gain the most momentum going into New Hampshire. New Hampshire isn't necessarily going to turn and validate Iowa's choice if Trump wins a majority of the vote and defeats the competition by 30 points there. If anything, history suggests they'll punish him electorally if he doesn't match what are now sky-high polling expectations, which I think he might crack that. Now, Haley doesn't lead in New Hampshire at this point like the eventual winners did in 1988 and 2000. That actually puts a greater emphasis for Haley to outperform her polling in Iowa. What she needs to occur is what happened to Democrat Gary Hart in 1984. Hart finished about 30 points behind the frontrunner Walter Mondale in the Hawkeye state. Similar to what polls currently indicate for Haley, Hart also did better than the polls said he would. Hart was able to use that finish to catapult from a distant second New Hampshire polls to a strong first place in the final result. He then closed in on Mondale in national polls, though he ultimately came up short for the nomination. So there is some history to this on the Democrat side. Gary Hart, he got crushed in Iowa, but he did better than expected. And that's what people are going to watch out for. If Ramaswamy outperforms by 5-10 points, he's going to be the one that gains momentum. If Trump outperforms by 5-10 points somehow he gains momentum. And that's what people got to understand. DeSantis set huge expectations, and now he needs to do like 10 points better than the polls indicate. Haley's probably like 4-5. Ramaswamy just cracked double digits, which is entirely possible. So overall, this is a situation where it's ahistorical for the nominee or the winner of Iowa to do this good in New Hampshire. It just usually doesn't happen. But it looks like we're making history, and Trump is more than likely going to cruise in Iowa, and funny enough, and probably do really good in New Hampshire. Either way, folks, we got to see what happens, but it is looking very good for Trump and hell, Ramaswamy to gain significant momentum going into New Hampshire. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Thank you so much. Godspeed to all of you.